There is a wall buried beneath a Texas town so perfect that experts once swore human hands built it. There are lights that dance over the desert at night, watched for 200 years, and still nobody knows what they are. There is a cave that swallows 15 million living creatures every night. These aren't legends. They're real, documented, and stranger than fiction. Today we count down the 15 most unreal places in Texas that even scientists cannot fully explain. Subscribe now, because number 1 is still unsolved. Number 15. The Blue Lagoon, Huntsville. We begin with a place that looks like it was cut from the Caribbean and dropped into the East Texas pines. Near Huntsville sits the Blue Lagoon, a pair of flooded former quarries, filled with water so vividly, impossibly turquoise, that first-time visitors assume the photos are edited. They are not. The water here glows an electric blue-green that seems to belong to a tropical island, not the middle of Texas forest country. The color comes from the minerals leached out of the old quarry rock and the extraordinary clarity of the water, which allows light to penetrate deep and scatter back in that signature aquamarine hue. On a bright day, divers descending into the flooded pits report visibility that feels almost endless, the walls dropping away into glowing blue depths. But the lagoons hold their own quiet mysteries. These are man-made scars on the land that nature reclaimed and transformed into something more beautiful than what was destroyed. The exact depth of the flooded quarries and the full extent of the submerged rock ledges below have drawn generations of scuba divers who use the site for training precisely because of that unnatural clarity. What makes the Blue Lagoon unreal isn't a scientific puzzle so much as a visual one, the sheer impossibility of that color existing in Texas at all. It stands as proof that some of the strangest sights in the state aren't ancient or unexplained, but accidental. A scar the earth turned into a jewel. Our next stop, though, is a genuine geological riddle that has divided scientists for over a century. Number 14. The Rockwall Underground Wall, Rockwall. Beneath the town of Rockwall, Texas, a town literally named after it, lies one of the strangest geological features in America, a massive, buried wall of stone that looks unmistakably man-made. The story begins in 1852, when settlers digging a well struck a hard, straight formation deep underground. As they excavated, they uncovered what appeared to be neatly stacked rectangular blocks, arranged in courses like masonry, running in long, straight lines beneath the earth. The feature is rumored to extend for miles and to reach several stories deep. The town took its name from it. For over 150 years, the debate has raged. In 1925, an archaeologist named Count Byron de Prorock examined a section and concluded it was man-made. Others were certain the arrangement, with its right angles, layered bricks, and even what some described as window-like openings, could not be natural. But mainstream geology tells a different story. As far back as 1901, geologist Dr. Robert T. Hill concluded the wall was nothing more than a naturally formed sandstone dike, a formation created when sediment filled ancient cracks in the rock and hardened over millions of years, later fracturing into shapes that only resemble deliberate masonry. More recent examinations agreed the studied sections were natural, and yet the mystery refuses to die. The geologists themselves have admitted they cannot rule out that some portion, somewhere in the buried structure, might be something else. The wall is real. Its blocky, stacked appearance is real, and the debate over whether nature or something else arranged those stones has never been fully settled. Our next place doesn't hide underground. It burns in the open, and it defies the very chemistry of fire. Number 13. Balmorhea and San Solomon Springs, West Texas. In the middle of the harsh Chihuahuan desert of West Texas, where the land is dry, cracked, and unforgiving, water erupts from the ground in staggering volume, and nobody has ever fully mapped where it comes from. San Solomon Springs, at Balmorhea State Park, pushes out an astonishing 15 to 28 million gallons of crystal-clear water every single day. That water fills the largest spring-fed swimming pool on Earth, 1.3 acres wide and up to 25 feet deep, sitting like an impossible oasis in the desert. The water stays a constant, Caribbean clear 72 to 76 degrees year-round, brimming with fish found in this pool and almost nowhere else, including the endangered Comanche Springs pupfish. The mystery is the source. This water does not come from local rain. This is one of the driest regions in Texas. Instead, hydrologists believe it wells up from a vast, ancient underground aquifer system, water that may have fallen as rain or snow in distant mountains and traveled underground for a very long time before surfacing here. The full extent of the underground plumbing feeding these springs, the network of cracks, channels, and reservoirs deep in the earth, has never been completely traced. Some swimmers even report an unexplained itching or welts after entering the water, a small strangeness layered on top of the larger one. An oasis this large, in a desert this severe, fed by water no one can fully account for. It feels less like geography and more like a miracle carved into stone. And the life inside it survives nowhere else on Earth. Next, we travel to a hole in the ground that eats the sky. Number 12. Devil's Sinkhole, Edwards County. Out on the remote Edwards Plateau, the flat scrubland gives way without warning to one of the most terrifying and mysterious openings in Texas. The Devil's Sinkhole, a vertical shaft that plunges straight down into darkness. The mouth is about 50 feet wide, and it drops sheer into the earth for roughly 350 to 400 feet, one of the largest single-chamber caverns in the state. Standing at the edge, you're looking down into a black void so deep that the bottom is lost in shadow. Early settlers reportedly threw objects in and never heard them land. The sinkhole has never been fully explored or mapped. Its technical difficulty and sheer depth have kept its deepest passages beyond reach, and the true extent of the caverns branching off the main chamber remains unknown. For generations, its most reliable inhabitants were bats. Millions of Mexican free-tailed bats that would pour out of the shaft at dusk in a spiraling black column visible for miles. And then came a genuine mystery. The bats vanished. By 2021, observers reported the once massive colony had mysteriously dwindled or disappeared entirely, raising alarm about causes ranging from the deadly white nose syndrome to unexplained environmental shifts. In their place, thousands of cave swallows now swirl into the pit at night. A bottomless-seeming shaft that has never been fully mapped, that once breathed millions of bats and then fell silent for reasons still being investigated, the Devil's Sinkhole earns its name. But if you think that colony was large, wait until you see the cave that still holds the greatest gathering of mammals on the entire planet. Number 11. Bracken Cave near San Antonio. Just outside San Antonio lies a cave that hosts a spectacle so massive it registers on weather radar. Bracken Cave, home to the largest concentration of mammals anywhere on Earth. Every summer, more than 15 million Mexican free-tailed bats, by some counts approaching 20 million, pack into this single cave to raise their young. It is quite simply the world's largest bat colony. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. Millions upon millions of individual animals crammed into one dark chamber, clinging to the ceiling so densely that the rock itself seems alive and moving. At dusk, the emergence begins. The bats pour out of the cave mouth in a continuous swirling black river that can take hours to fully empty. The column rises into the sky and spirals upward, so enormous that it appears on radar systems as if it were a weather event. In a single night, this colony devours hundreds of tons of insects, an ecological force operating on a scale that dwarfs almost anything else in nature. What makes Bracken Cave genuinely astonishing to scientists is the sheer coordination and mystery of it. How these millions of animals navigate in total darkness in such density without colliding. How they synchronize, and how the colony has anchored itself to this one specific cave for what may be thousands of years. Researchers still study how such an immense population sustains itself and what would happen to the surrounding ecosystem if it ever collapsed. 15 million living creatures in one cave pouring into the Texas sky every single night. It is one of the natural wonders of the world, hiding in plain sight in Texas. Now we leave the caves for something far more unsettling: rock art that has stared out from the desert for 6,000 years. Number 10. Hueco Tanks, near El Paso. In the desert east of El Paso, ancient rock basins collect precious rainwater, and on the stone around them, hundreds of painted faces stare back across thousands of years. The mysterious masks of Hueco Tanks. This cluster of low rock mountains holds one of the most extraordinary collections of rock art in North America. More than 3,000 paintings, including the largest concentration of painted masks on the continent, over 200 of them. These are not simple stick figures. They are strange, staring ceremonial faces, goggle-eyed masks, elaborate deity-like visages, painted by ancient peoples, including the Jornada Mogollon culture. The mystery lies in their meaning and their age. Some of the masks are believed to represent gods: a rain god, a hunter god, created to summon water in this bone-dry land. Dating has placed some pigments many hundreds to a couple thousand years old, while broader interpretations of the region's rock art tradition stretch the timeline back thousands of years, with some connecting these images to a Mesoamerican worldview about the cosmos itself. But no one can fully explain who painted all of them, exactly what each mask was meant to invoke, or the complete belief system they belonged to. The people who made them left no written language, only these haunting faces on stone. Standing among them, surrounded by hundreds of ancient eyes gazing out of the rock, you feel the weight of a lost world trying to communicate across an impossible gulf of time. What they were saying, and to whom, remains only partly understood. The site is now carefully protected, and access is limited precisely because these fragile messages from the deep past cannot be replaced. Our next stop trades painted faces for footprints, the footprints of giants that walked here 113 million years ago. Number 9. Paluxy Dinosaur Tracks, Glen Rose. In the bed of the Paluxy River near Glen Rose, Texas, the rock preserves something that stops visitors cold: the actual footprints of dinosaurs, pressed into the earth roughly 113 million years ago and still perfectly visible today. At Dinosaur Valley State Park, you can literally place your own foot inside the track of a creature that lumbered across this ground when the area was a muddy shoreline on the edge of an ancient sea. There are massive, round, elephant-like prints left by enormous long-necked sauropods, and the sharp, three-toed tracks of predatory theropods that stalked them. Some trackways run for dozens of feet, recording the exact path a single animal walked over 100 million years ago, a frozen moment of prehistoric life. The tracks are usually hidden beneath the flowing river, and in a strange twist, they are often revealed most clearly during severe droughts, when the water drops and exposes stretches of trackway that hadn't been seen in years. The drought of recent years uncovered spectacular new prints that had been submerged. But the Paluxy River also became the center of one of the great scientific controversies in American history. For decades, some claimed that certain elongated tracks in the same limestone were human footprints, appearing right alongside the dinosaurs, which would rewrite everything science understands about the timeline of life. Careful study eventually concluded these were eroded or infilled dinosaur tracks, not human, but the man tracks of the Paluxy remain a legendary chapter in the mystery of this riverbed. Real dinosaur footprints you can touch, revealed and hidden by the whims of drought, wrapped in a century-old controversy. The Paluxy is a doorway straight into deep time. If you're still with me, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments which place has been the strangest so far. The top 8 get even stranger. Number 8. Enchanted Rock, near Fredericksburg. Rising abruptly out of the Texas hill country is an enormous dome of pink granite so strange that native peoples believed it was haunted, and the legends have never entirely gone away. Enchanted Rock. This is a 425-foot-tall batholith, a colossal blister of billion-year-old granite pushed up from deep within the earth and exposed by eons of erosion. It covers hundreds of acres and glows a soft pink in the sunlight. an alien-looking mound of bare stone dominating the green countryside around it. The enchantment comes from the sounds. At night, especially after hot days, the rock emits eerie creaking and groaning noises. The indigenous peoples who lived here believed the dome was inhabited by spirits, that ghost fires flickered on its summit, and that it was a place of powerful, unsettling magic. Some refused to set foot on it. Legends spoke of a mysterious opening leading into the unknown beneath the stone. Science offers an explanation for the sounds. The granite expands in the day's heat and contracts sharply as it cools at night, and that thermal stress causes the rock to creak and pop, the groans that so unnerved ancient visitors. It's a satisfying answer, yet standing alone on that vast dome in the dark, listening to the mountains seemingly speak beneath your feet, the scientific explanation feels thin against the sheer eeriness of the experience. There are also strange weathering formations across its surface, shallow pits and basins that collect water and host tiny, isolated ecosystems of rare shrimp and plants found only in these rock pools. Ancient, groaning, glowing pink, and wrapped in centuries of legend, Enchanted Rock is a place where geology and the supernatural have argued for a very long time. Next, we descend into a swamp that feels like it belongs to another continent entirely. Number 7. Caddo Lake, East Texas. On the border of Texas and Louisiana lies a place that looks nothing like the rest of the state, Caddo Lake. A vast, ghostly maze of cypress swamp draped in Spanish moss, wrapped in fog, and full of unanswered questions about how it even came to exist. Caddo Lake sprawls across nearly 27,000 acres of slow-moving bayous, backwaters, and flooded forest. Towering bald cypress trees rise straight out of the black water, their trunks hung with curtains of gray Spanish moss, creating a landscape so eerie and primeval that it feels transported from the deepest Louisiana bayou or a prehistoric world. Morning fog settles over the water, and the whole place takes on a haunted, dreamlike quality. But the deepest mystery is the lake's origin. Caddo Lake is unusual because it was one of the only large naturally formed lakes in all of Texas, and the legend of how it formed is genuinely strange. Caddo Indian oral tradition held that the lake appeared suddenly, overnight, formed by a great trembling of the earth. For years, many linked its creation to the massive New Madrid earthquakes of the early 1800s, imagining the ground buckling and the waters rushing in. Others credit an enormous natural logjam, the Great Raft, a colossal centuries-old tangle of driftwood that once choked the Red River and backed water up into the bottomlands. The exact truth of how this maze of swamp came to be remains debated. And navigating it is its own mystery. The bayous form a shifting labyrinth so confusing that boaters rely on marked roads through the water to avoid getting hopelessly lost among the identical cypress trees. A swamp that may have been born overnight from a shaking earth, hiding in a state of dry plains, Caddo Lake is beautifully out of place. Our next stop, though, is Texas at its most extreme, a corner of the state that jams instruments and hides canyons. Number 6. The Big Bend Hot Springs and Canyons, West Texas. Where the Rio Grande carves the southwestern edge of Texas, the land explodes into something that shouldn't look like Texas at all. The towering canyons, jagged desert mountains, and mysterious hot springs of Big Bend. Here, the river has sliced canyons like Boquillas and Santa Elena straight down through solid rock, their sheer walls rising well over 1,000 feet, so narrow and deep that sunlight only reaches the river below for part of the day. The desert around them is studded with strange eroded rock formations, ancient volcanic remnants, and one of the richest fossil beds in North America, where the bones of enormous creatures, including the giant flying reptile Quetzalcoatlus with its 30-foot wingspan, have been pulled from the earth. And then there are the hot springs. Along the banks of the Rio Grande, water bubbles up from the ground at a soothing 105 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough that a health resort was built around it back in 1909. These springs shouldn't obviously be here. There's no active volcano nearby, and geologists attribute them to water traveling deep along the region's network of fault lines, heated far underground before rising back to the surface. Big Bend is also famous as one of the darkest places in North America. It has some of the least light-polluted night skies on the continent, so dark and clear that the Milky Way casts shadows, and the stars seem close enough to touch. That very darkness deepens the sense that this is a place apart, a wild frontier where the ordinary rules of Texas seem suspended. Canyons that swallow the sun, springs heated by the deep earth, giants pulled from the rock, and skies darker than almost anywhere else. Big Bend is Texas at its most unreal. Now we come to a phenomenon you can't photograph, a mystery of the human mind and the desert night. Number 5. The Marfa Lights, West Texas. Out on a lonely stretch of highway near the tiny town of Marfa, West Texas, people have gathered for over a century to watch something that science still cannot fully explain. Glowing orbs of light that appear out of the darkness and dance across the empty desert. The Marfa Lights, first reported as far back as the 1800s, appear at night on the horizon southeast of town. Witnesses describe glowing balls of light, sometimes white, sometimes yellow, red, or blue, that hover, split apart, merge back together, dart across the desert floor at impossible speeds, and then vanish. They've been seen by countless observers over the decades, so reliably that the state built a dedicated viewing platform just to watch them. For more than 100 years, explanations have piled up and none has fully closed the case. Some scientists who studied the lights between 2000 and 2008 concluded they were simply distant automobile headlights on nearby Highway 67, distorted and made to shimmer by layers of warm and cool desert air bending the light. That explanation covers many modern sightings, but it struggles to account for the historical reports from before cars ever existed, and for the erratic, splitting, darting behavior witnesses describe. Other theories have invoked atmospheric electricity, reflections, mirages, or gases, but no single explanation satisfies everyone, and the official verdict remains frustratingly open. The lights are real in the sense that people genuinely see them, night after night. What exactly produces every one of them is still, honestly, unsettled. For over 200 years, the desert near Marfa has been putting on a light show that the finest investigators still can't completely explain. And it will appear again tonight, for anyone patient enough to wait in the dark. Our next 4 places push even deeper into the strange, starting far beneath the surface with an ecosystem that may not depend on the sun at all. Number 4. The Edwards Aquifer's Hidden World, Central Texas. Beneath the cities and hills of Central Texas lies a vast, hidden underworld of water, the Edwards Aquifer, and living in its lightless depths are creatures so bizarre that they seem to belong to another planet. The Edwards Aquifer is an enormous underground network of water-filled limestone, honeycombed with caves, channels, and submerged passages stretching across many counties and supplying water to millions of people. But it's what lives down there, in the eternal darkness, that makes it unreal. In the black, sunless water dwell strange, pale, otherworldly animals that have adapted to a world without light. Among them is the Texas blind salamander, a ghostly, translucent creature with no functional eyes and skin so pale you can see its internal organs, feathery red gills fanning out from its head. It has evolved in total darkness for so long that it abandoned eyesight and pigment entirely, becoming a living specter of the underground. Alongside it live blind catfish, eyeless invertebrates, and other creatures found nowhere else, an entire hidden food web operating deep below our feet. What fascinates and puzzles scientists is how these ecosystems sustain themselves in the dark, how many undiscovered species may still lurk in unexplored passages, and how creatures so specialized survive in a world humans can barely reach. The full extent of the aquifer's cave systems has never been completely mapped. Divers and researchers continually discover new passages and, occasionally, new species. A sprawling, sunless sea beneath the Texas hill country, filled with blind, ghostly, translucent life forms, The Edwards Aquifer proves that some of the strangest places in Texas aren't in the sky or on the surface, but hidden directly beneath our cities. Next, we return to the desert of West Texas for a mystery of scale so vast it strains belief. Number 3. The buried Capitan Reef, Guadalupe Mountains. In the far western corner of Texas, rising from the desert, stands a mountain range that is one of the most astonishing things in North America. An entire ancient coral reef, 400 miles long, that was once at the bottom of a tropical sea, now buried in the middle of a bone-dry desert. The Guadalupe Mountains are the exposed portion of the Capitan Reef, a vast fossilized reef complex that formed roughly 250 to 265 million years ago, during the Permian period. Back then, this part of Texas was submerged beneath a warm, shallow tropical ocean, and along its edge grew an immense reef built not from modern corals but from ancient sponges, algae, and other marine organisms. Then the sea evaporated. The reef was buried under thousands of feet of sediment and sealed away for over 200 million years. Much later, geological uplift pushed a portion of it back toward the surface, and erosion stripped away the covering rock to reveal it, while the vast majority of the 400-mile reef complex still lies buried beneath the surrounding desert. The result is genuinely surreal. Hike these desert mountains today and you are literally climbing an ancient coral reef, surrounded by the fossilized remains of sea creatures that swam here 250 million years ago, thousands of feet above the nearest ocean, in one of the driest landscapes in America. You can find the shapes of ancient marine life embedded in the stone at your feet. A tropical reef, 400 miles long, teeming with sea life, now sitting silent and fossilized in the heart of the West Texas desert, it is a mountain range that shouldn't exist, and a reminder that Texas was once an ocean floor. Our next to last place is one of the eeriest sounds on Earth, and it may not exist outside the human head at all. Number 2. The Otine Swamp of Palmetto State Park, Central Texas. For our second entry, we travel to a place that has no business existing where it does. A genuine tropical swamp sitting in the middle of dry Central Texas, fed by water no one can fully account for, and haunted by a legend that refuses to fade. The Otine Swamp at Palmetto State Park. Tucked beside the tiny town of Otney, this park is a botanical impossibility. Here, in the middle of Texas, you'll find a lush, humid, subtropical world of dense dwarf palmettos. Squat, fan-leaved palms that look like they belong in a Central American jungle, not the Texas prairie. Ferns, mosses, and thick green undergrowth crowd around slow, muddy water, and the humidity hangs heavy in the air. Step into it, and you feel as if you've been teleported thousands of miles south to a rainforest. The deep mystery is the water. This subtropical ecosystem survived for ages thanks to natural artesian springs and seeps that bubbled up from underground, keeping the swamp wet even as the surrounding land stayed dry. But over time, many of those springs mysteriously slowed or stopped flowing, their underground plumbing shifting for reasons not fully understood, threatening the entire rare habitat and forcing efforts to keep it artificially alive. Why a lush tropical pocket exists here at all, sustained by such fragile hidden water, remains genuinely strange. And then there's the legend. For generations, locals have spoken of the Otine Swamp Thing, a hairy, upright creature, a kind of Texas Bigfoot, said to lurk in the misty undergrowth. Visitors report eerie feelings, sudden cold, and the sense of being watched among the ancient palms. A tropical rainforest stranded in dry Texas, fed by vanishing springs, wrapped in mist and monster legend. The Otine Swamp is a place that simply shouldn't be here. And now, our number 1, the single strangest place in all of Texas. Number 1. Longhorn Caverns Impossible Passages, Central Texas. For our number 1, we descend beneath the hill country into a cave unlike almost any other on Earth. Longhorn Cavern, near Burnett, Texas, a place whose very method of formation remained a genuine geological puzzle, and whose smooth, sculpted passages look impossibly carved by an unseen hand. Most famous caves are formed slowly by dripping, mineral-rich water-building stalactites and stalagmites over eons. Longhorn Cavern is different. Its walls and passages are strangely smooth, sculpted, and flowing, polished into graceful curves and rippling shapes that look almost hand-carved or water-worn like a riverbed. That's because this cave, geologists concluded, was largely formed not by dripping water, but by an underground river that once surged through the limestone under pressure, dissolving and scouring out these sinuous, sculpted corridors. The result is a cave that feels less like a natural cavity and more like a passage deliberately smoothed by something. The cavern is wrapped in layers of human mystery too. It has been used across the ages, by ancient peoples thousands of years ago, and, according to persistent local legend, as a hideout by the outlaw Sam Bass, who supposedly stashed stolen treasure somewhere in its depths that was never found. During Prohibition, it reportedly served as a secret underground dance hall and speakeasy deep beneath the Texas soil. And, like so many of Texas's great caves, Longhorn Cavern has never been fully explored. Its known passages stretch for miles, but the true, complete extent of the system, how deep it goes, where its unexplored branches lead, remains unknown. Explorers still find new sections. An underground river carved a cave so smooth it looks sculpted by design, filled it with lost outlaw treasure and secret histories, and left passages no one has ever reached the end of. Beneath the quiet hill country lies a hidden world we still haven't finished mapping, the most unreal place in Texas. 15 places. A lagoon glowing impossible blue. A buried wall that fooled the experts. A desert oasis fed by water no one can trace. A bottomless sinkhole that fell silent. A cave breathing 15 million bats into the night. Ancient masks staring from the rock. Dinosaur footprints revealed by drought. A pink mountain that groans in the dark. A swamp that may have been born overnight. Canyons and hot springs on the wild frontier. Lights dancing over Marfa for 2 centuries. Blind, ghostly creatures beneath our cities. A 400-mile reef stranded in the desert. A sound only some can hear. And an underground river cave no one has ever fully explored. Every one of these places has been studied, some for decades, some for centuries, and everyone has, at some point, forced a scientist to admit the same 3 words. We do not know. Texas is not fully mapped. It is not fully understood. In the gaps between what we can measure and what we can explain, there are caves and canyons and lights and sounds that still refuse to give up their secrets. Which unreal place shocked you the most? Tell me in the comments. And if you made it to the end, you already know this channel is for you. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you at the next impossible place.